Hello and welcome to my note. Let's take a look at US politics. Now, we are still more than a month away from Election Day. The first of the three presidential debates hasn't even arrived yet. That comes next week. And yet, if you believe the markets, the election is close to a done deal at this point. If you look at the in-trade prediction markets or the various other prediction markets, or even at the stock market itself, the prediction is very clear. They think that President Barack Obama is going to get re-elected. Now, what are the consequences for that? And is it possible that conventional wisdom, that market wisdom, not for the first time, is getting rather too far ahead of itself? With me now to discuss this is our Chief Foreign Affairs commentator, Gideon Rachman. Gideon, thanks very much for coming on the video today. Let's start by showing you what in-trade sees as President Obama's chances and compare that to how the stock market has gone. Plainly not much sign that the stock market is that scared by President Obama so far, but obviously a perception that in the last couple of weeks President Obama has gone from a slight probability to a racing certainty of getting re-elected. Why do you think we're seeing that kind of swing in sentiment, and do you think it's right?
Well, I think that clearly Romney's had a very bad couple of weeks. The gaffe where he was recorded talking to donors about essentially writing off 47% of the country as hopeless victims who just want to be supported by the state was very, very damaging. It's put the campaign on the back foot, and I think those poll numbers, together with actually the conventions, the Democrats having a slightly better convention, have now solidified the sense, and that chart really is a measure of conventional wisdom. It's what accumulated people think. So that is the conventional wisdom, that Obama's now in the home straight, well ahead. But I don't think it's a done deal for two reasons. First of all, there are still some very difficult things Obama has to overcome. Unemployment is higher than it's been for any president to be re-elected since the 1930s, and 2 to 1 of Americans think the country's on the wrong track. Now that's a real problem and could still play for an opposition candidate. And the second thing is that we have the debates to come, and those, I think, essentially offer Romney his last chance to haul this back. And debates have changed presidential elections in the past. Archetypally was Kennedy-Nixon in 1960, but since then you had Gerald Ford really blowing himself out of the water in debates with Jimmy Carter, Reagan-Mondale. They do matter, and if you have a game-changing moment, then Romney could be back in it. Okay,
let's quickly illustrate again how confident the stock market is about President Obama. This shows you how healthcare facilities stocks, arguably the sector that benefits most from Obama re-election, are doing compared to coal stocks, which obviously would rather prefer the Republicans to get back in. How is healthcare going to play? Obviously, this has been a very important issue for in igniting the Republican base, and now people don't seem to be interested in it anymore. Or that's the impression one gets. How does that play?
Well, in the election, I think part of the Republicans' problem is they've muddled their message. In terms of the markets, I think that it's quite indicative, because one of the things that the Obama people say is, well, our healthcare reforms, not only will they provide health insurance for all Americans in due course, but they'll even bring down costs. Now, the markets seem to be betting that actually the Obamacare reforms will be very good for hospitals, for healthcare companies. In other words, more money funneling into the industry, perhaps therefore more money funneling out of the US exchequer.
Right, which is never a comfortable thought. Finally, let's take a look at the odds for Congress. And again, there's been a very big change here. It now looks as though people think that the Democrats are going to hold on to the Senate after all. And meanwhile, they even begin to think that it's possible that the Republicans could lose the House. Does that seem right? And what could the implications be for the fiscal cliff negotiations that are needed by the end of the year?
Well, that would be a real shock result. If the Republicans lost the House as well as the Senate, it would be a sign that the Romney campaign had truly been disastrous and had contaminated the whole party. I still think that's unlikely. I think we'll get a divided Congress, possibly Democrats holding the Senate and Republicans holding the House. And then that, I think, is very difficult and very bad news for an effort to get round this fiscal cliff in a relatively painless way, because I think a Republican Party that has just lost the presidential election will be, to put it bluntly, in a very bad mood, and may interpret this as a sign that they ran a moderate presidential candidate who didn't stick to the true Republican religion, and that they will go back to being really, really hard line on spending, refusing all tax hikes and so on. And it could be very difficult to get around the fiscal cliff. I guess they'll do it in the end, because it would be a disaster to go over the edge, but it'll be hard.
Okay, thank you very much, Gideon. We've heard similar arguments about the Eurozone crisis, I suppose. Broadly speaking, the key message has to be that there are greater political uncertainties and greater political risks embedded in the US at the moment than the stock market would have you believe.